everyone, Zian over here from Nintendo Life, and this is my cat Navi. She's feeling a little lonely today, so she's going to be sitting up on my desk and in my lap for the majority of this video. I love the hell out of Persona 3 Reload. When it came to Xbox and PlayStation last year, I put like 100 hours into it. I finished it in like 2 months. That's like the most time I've ever put into a video game in that short amount of time. Right up to the very end, it was an incredible game, a lovely story. And it's why I'm such a firm advocate for it coming to Switch or Switch 2 so more people can experience the game. Now you may have heard the game is officially coming to Nintendo Switch 2. It was revealed in the latest Nintendo Direct. And you can even see in the fine text in the Direct, it's confirmed to be getting a physical release. I was thrilled to bits. But one detail that Atlus and Sega failed to mention in the latest Direct is that this physical Switch 2 version of the game is likely to be a game key release. Of course it's a game key. Of course it is. At least in Japan, it's confirmed for certain. Now, I probably don't need to bore you with what a game key release is. You've probably heard it ad nauseum from other outlets, lamenting the existence of them. But for those of you that are just tuning into this, game key releases don't contain any game data on the actual cartridge. It just gives you a license to the game, and then you can download it onto your console yourself. So if you're on a road trip and you stop by a Walmart and you pick up a game key Switch 2 game, you pop it in your console, you won't be able to play it. You'll have to wait until you get home to download it. Now, for some reason, I'm crazy, and I thought that things as far as game key releases go were starting to get better. I thought developers and publishers were starting to recognize that this is not a good idea. It's not a good way to release games to the public. Now, I did the math, and roughly 85% of third-party games available on Switch 2 are available as either game keys or, even worse, a code in a box. So far, you've got Cyberpunk 2077 and Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma. Better yet, Marvelous took it one step further with Rune Factory, and they actually made it so that the physical Switch 2 cartridge also works in a Nintendo Switch 1. It contains both the Switch 1 version of the game and the upgrade pack for Switch 2. So if you pop this in either console, you don't need the internet to play it right out of the box. Now, whenever I have this game key discussion with friends, and it's actually quite often, most of them always bring up the fact that most modern games, whether it's discs or cartridges, they don't really come on the cartridge or the disc anyways. You have to always download something. And while that is partially true, a lot of games have day one updates or later patches to fix bugs and things like that. I was curious how many games from the past few years actually come fully intact on the cartridge or the disc. So I grabbed my entire stack of PlayStation 5 games, which is not that many, it's about 15 or 20 games, and I looked them all up on a website called doesitplay.org. They have a community of people that will play through video games, and they'll let you know how complete they are actually on the cartridge or the disc at retail. All right, come here, girl. And I found a few games like Helldivers 2. This game needs an update in order to play, and it's an online game only anyways, so that makes sense. But then you have stuff like Immortals of Avium, which is riddled with bugs. You can play it front to back, but it's apparently not a fun time. But then you have all of these other games, which, yes, a lot of them do have day one updates. All of these games are front to back complete. You can play them start to finish without downloading anything. Yes, you do have to install a bunch of data to your console, but all of these games, the discs, will be fully playable in 20, 30, 40, 50 years, as long as the discs withstand the test of time. And that is my biggest concern here. I am the kind of person that still likes to go and sit in the other room and plug in some of my old consoles, my Nintendo 64, my PlayStation 1. I like to play Point Blank with a gun con. I want to boot up Final Fantasy X and play it on the PS2. And sure, maybe I'd like the option to be able to download these updates, but if it's not the biggest deal breaker, I don't think I'm going to be fussed to do it in the future. So to take this one step further, I went and grabbed all of my third-party Nintendo Switch games that have come out in the last since 2023. And all of these games as well are all complete on the cartridge. Currently at retail, there should be 15 different third-party Nintendo Switch 2 games, and only two of them are fully complete on the cartridge. The rest of them are codes and boxes or game key releases. What is going on here? Now, I don't own a physical edition of Persona 3 Reload. I've been waiting to pick one up for a while. Also just been kind of hoping that it would come to Switch 2 so I could buy a physical edition. I have it digitally on Xbox, which I got because I worked on the video review for Pure Xbox. I don't know if you ever saw that review, but I never needed to buy a copy because I had that digital release. Thanks to the internet, I found out that the Xbox version of Persona 3 Reload contains the original Xbox One version of the game, and if you play it on an Xbox Series X, you can still play it that way, but in order to get the better graphical enhancements, you need to download an update. So you still at least have some kind of game on the cartridge there. And I believe from what I read that the PlayStation 4 version and the PS5 versions of the game have the respective versions on the disc. Now, of course, you're still missing the day one updates. You don't have the DLC, The Answer, but you have the game on the disc. You have something you can actually play. Helldivers 2, I'm less fussed about that because it's an online only game anyways. Even if the servers ever go down someday, I wasn't expecting to still be able to play this. But with something like Persona, with Tunic, with Immortals of Avium, with Astrobot, I want to be able to still play those games. I want to have the option. Now you have companies out there like Square Enix that have confirmed that Octopath Traveler 0 and Dragon Quest HD 2D 1 and 2 are both coming out as game key releases on Nintendo Switch 2. And they actually don't even offer upgrade packs for those games if you buy the Switch 1 version, because that was another potential option that I've been considering, is buying the physical edition for Switch 1 and then just getting the upgrade pack. But for games like that, the remaster for Final Fantasy Tactics, I imagine that's going to be a similar thing. Maybe it's already been confirmed. It feels ridiculous to say this, but video games are a work of art and they shouldn't have to be rushed to hit retail. They should be respected and delivered in a proper package that the customer feels good about purchasing. That's why I've not purchased any other physical Switch 2 games, because almost all of them are game keys. I probably would have got Bravely Default and traded in my 3DS copy, but nope. Now, Sega at least seems to be taking some steps in the right direction. When they released Sonic X Shadow Generations and Puyo Puyo Tetris S2 on Switch 2, they didn't offer any upgrade packs, and they still to this day don't, even though those games had original Switch 1 versions. But Yakuza Kiwami, which was just announced in the latest Nintendo Direct, is coming to Switch 2, and we don't know how much it's going to be yet, but there is going to be an upgrade path, either with a pack or just some kind of additional purchase, so that way you can get the enhancements of the Switch 2 version if you bought that original Switch 1 version. It seems like they're listening. So what can we do about this beyond just not purchasing game key releases? It's important to speak with your wallet, and that's what I'm trying to do as well here, but that doesn't really feel like enough. I think that's why I'm making this video now, in hopes that someone at Sega and Atlus will hear this and will hear the pleas of others. So now, I'm not urging you to send emails and send physical letters, but if you feel strongly about it, if you have the energy, reach out and let Sega know, let Square Enix, let all of these third-party publishers and developers that are releasing game key releases, let them know how important it is for you to have a full, playable, complete package on the cartridge. You'd think that they'd be able to hear the pleas of everyone on the internet, but remember, sometimes we live in a bubble. And it's hard to tell sometimes how far our words can actually reach outside of that bubble. Sega, Square Enix, Capcom, you have to future-proof these things that you claim to love so much. Because if you don't, you're going to lose a lot of longtime fans, your customers, in the process. I hope I'm wrong. I hope the Western side of Sega decides to release a full-on physical edition of Persona 3 Reload on Switch 2 with all of the content. Maybe even a beefier one that has the DLC The Answer on it. I'll pay extra for it, I don't care. But I won't pay for a game key card. So get out there and let them know. Burn your dread, you know?